Welcome back. You've heard the expression, think globally, act locally. It refers to the environment, but for our purposes tonight, we're talking about the local economy. Indications are the holiday season was very, very good to retailers. But what about our local retailers? Shops on Main Street, local merchants trying to compete against the big box stores for a share of your business. And joining us for more is Ron Soto, the president of the Downtown Merchants Association, Kevin Cooper, president of the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, and Michael Snipes, an economics instructor at USF Sarasota Manatee. Gentlemen, do we have any initial indications how our local retailers did this holiday season? Ron?
Just what people have told me verbally, that that December turned out to be a very good month for them. Majority of them had a weird month, though. It was like a couple of days that were really gangbusters, then a day or two of nothing, and then a couple more days of gangbusters, so it was a real roller coaster.
Why do you think that is?
Have no idea. I know this past weekend it's the weather, but I really have no idea why it was a roller coaster the way it was. But I found it in my own business that way.
Yeah, I mean, we did have some really frigid days, at least this week. But I did find and I'm walking around downtown Sarasota practically every single day. It was bustling most of the time. Kevin, what about county-wide?
Yeah, I think the numbers reflect the same thing Ron was talking about countywide. And one of the reasons it's hard to get numbers in this early is, almost 10 to 12% of holiday spending takes place between the week between Christmas and New Year. So a lot of people wait till after the fact to buy their gifts or returning and doing other things. So it's kind of hard to get those numbers together. But the national trends are showing to prove out here locally where you're seeing a really great month. And they might be kind of sporadic, ebb and flow. You don't know when it's going to come and you don't know when it's not. But year over year, what you're seeing is a really positive impact this year. And there's a lot of things about the economy that are contributing to that.
Michael, that was my next question. I would imagine it's too early to get the national numbers as well, but what is the sense out there in terms of how retailers did during the holiday season?
Well, nationally, what we saw really was reflecting what we saw locally, that online sales were up relative to last year, brick and mortar sales were up relative to last year, and really what that is more than anything just kind of an indicator or a reflection of how strong the economy is, both locally and at a national level.
Right, but we've done a number of stories over the last few years about the explosion in online shopping and how it's impacted retailers, both the big box stores and the mom and pop shops. Is that still playing out as a real threat to brick and mortar retailers?
If anything, I think that there might be a little bit of a turn towards brick and mortar becoming more and more important because, as was mentioned in the piece, you get a sense of kind of that personal connection, of that customer service, that you can experience the product that you don't get online. And online retailing and our online lives, our virtual lives are so commonplace and so fixed now that really the novelty now is getting that personal service that you can only get in a local business.
Kevin, is there, you wanted to say something?
Well, I think that, and Ron was, I think, a little bit modest in the opening piece talking about why people would come to his shop. It's about the unique experience you can get and the unique products you can get. So, the behemoth in the room is Amazon.com and you can go there. But you simply can't find the quality of product, the diverse array of products, and the things you can't find here locally there. So that's what's driving, I think, people back to the retail location. We think of big box being kind of the model that's dying, but the local Main Street type retailer that's really doing a specialty service and specialty products is what's really starting to rear its head again.
I would imagine it depends on who you're shopping for. If you're shopping for somebody who's close to you and needs it, whether it's a pair of eyeglasses or a piece of jewelry, that's one thing. But for instance, when you want to buy something for your kids, you don't know exactly what their tastes are. You might be more open to buying a gift card and let them go out and buy whatever Nike product they want.
I think what the Amazon type of thing that's hurting is the big box stores, the Sears and stuff like that. The little mom and paws, when you walk in, you're not a number. You are a person that comes in. We don't have customers. We have relationships with those customers. So when they come in, they get something special. They get that person that's always been there. When you walk into the studios, you find that, hey, this guy's been here for 25 years.
All right, we're just getting warmed up, and much more on the local retailers right after we check the first alert weather. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking about how local retailers did during the holiday season, and joining us for more is Ron Soto, president of the Downtown Merchants Association, Kevin Cooper, president of the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, and Michael Snipes, an economics instructor at USF Sarasota Manatee. Michael, is it possible to get an kind of an accurate read in terms of how retailers are doing just from what we saw over the holiday season? I have a buddy, John, who says the roads were busier than ever, the parking lots at the mall were as busy as ever, and therefore the economy is doing better now than we have seen in years.
Well, you would rather see financial numbers than you would the number of cars in parking lot, but really it's hit or miss, because if it's just one or two people in a car, then a parking lot can fill up pretty quickly. But if you've got 4 or 5 people and you've got multiple generations all within a car, then fewer cars might actually be a good thing. It's really more about the customer.
So when are we going to see accurate numbers in terms of nationally how we did? I know that there was a preliminary report before the end of last month that said that holiday retail sales rose by 4.9% over the year before.
Mm-hmm. It usually takes a couple months. I'm not entirely sure, exactly sure when the reports come out, but it does, I mean, if we're talking about the entire economy, those do take time to compile all those numbers.
And Kevin, what about here on the Suncoast?
Yeah, I think it's mimicking what you're seeing. I think the report you're referring to came out of MasterCard, where they showed data from November 1st up to December 24th, and they show kind of spending data that they collect. And it's been fairly accurate over time, and what they show is what they expected to see was about a 4% rise over last year, and they saw a 4.9% increase.
But do you try to break it down to what we're seeing in the greater Sarasota area in terms of whether it's big box stores or what's happening on Main Street, how the area itself is doing?
Yeah, you do, and I think what you're starting to see in this area, I think the headwinds coming into this season, what you were starting to see is we saw unemployment going down, but what we weren't seeing here locally was some wage growth. And over the last year, we really started seeing some wage growth. We started seeing the average work week grow up. So we really started seeing this consumer confidence on the Suncoast really starting to go up. Hiring started to increase even more. And so you saw that happen, and then anecdotally, you start to talk to people like Ron and people that are running the merchants here on Main Street, and they're seeing it. It's definitely happening. What we won't know is the full effect here, and I think we'll get some returns that come back in the month of January. We won't really assess what happens until February, March, but it's there.
Ron, 2 questions to you. Is there anything the Downtown Retailers Association is doing to actually try to nail down where our sales are? Not nationally, not regionally, but what's happening in downtown Sarasota?
We actually just pool amongst ourselves. We don't actually take numbers from it, because there's a lot of people, they don't want to give their numbers up and what they're doing. They want to keep that a little private. But we share amongst ourselves how we did over the past year, the month or so.
And what can you tell us about who your customers are? Are they the snowbirds who come down here every year? Are they the vacationers maybe from Canada or from overseas? Or is it people living in our community who are here 12 months a year, who are coming into the store now with a little bit more enthusiasm or money in their wallet to do things that they haven't in the last few years?
The majority of the people who we're going to have coming in our stores right now are going to be the snowbirds. That's the bottom line. Then in the summertime it changes. It's all locals, because the snowbirds aren't here. So it varies. But the thing about downtown, and there's a trend right now, and it's in most of your major papers and magazines, that it's back to Main Street. They want to be known as a name and not a number. And when you walk in a place like Kennedy Studios, Ron Campion's been there for 30-some years. You go to the jeweler next to me, Friends Jewelers, and Tom Friend and his family have been there for 30-some years. So every time you come in, it's that same face. They know you, you know them. And then you go to a Pottery Barn, and it's a new customer, a new patient waiting on you every time you walk in.
Okay, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be back right in a moment. Welcome back, and we continue our conversation about how local retailers did during the holiday season. And here's the question. Is there something that, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or the Downtown Retailers Association, can do to try to coordinate strategy during the holidays in terms of getting people to come down, whether it's advertising a certain day or some kind of special program? What do you do, and how effective is it?
Well, we've hired a person to come in and do our social media for us. So they're doing Facebook, Twitter, all the social groups that are out there. And we coordinate that so everybody can have little bits of advertising. They do snicklets, and we do that as a group. So not just coming downtown to see me, we want to advertise everybody to come down.
Right, but the difficulty, I would imagine, is what you want to do to get people to come into Ron's glass store is different than what you want to come into a bookstore, maybe.
Well, that's the thing. Chambers of commerce often operate under this concept that a rising tide lifts all boats. Let's bring the area up, and everyone will come along with it. But the strategies are so different, and it's hard to kind of get in the mind of a retailer who, like Ron, may be acting very different than an antique dealership, than a buy and sell coin dealership to do those things. So you don't really know what their individual strategies are. So you can kind of market an area or market a concept or market an event, but it really comes down to the granular details of why one person is walking into another store versus one person there. You don't know what brought them there. It's kind of really difficult to aggregate the traffic one way or the other. So it becomes very challenging, but there is a sense to what Ron's point is of social media bringing him to the area that the rising tide does lift all boats.
Michael, we were talking about this during the break, and you raised the term algorithms.
Yeah, there are ways, and I think that this would be something that I think could be useful for downtown, would be to look into, it's something similar to what Amazon does. So if you get on Amazon and you buy something and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see something that says, customers who bought this also bought this. And that's all done by algorithm, right? That's a computer that keeps track of who buys what and matches up things. So that's why you see somebody who buys a book also buys a toaster, right? So that might be something that you could coordinate downtown, that somebody who is more likely to go to a restaurant is also more likely to go to a specific business. You can form a partnership.
And that's the reason why I get so many advertisements for dog products on my Facebook page right now, because I looked at one video. Michael, in terms of what we're dealing with in terms of local merchants, local retailers here, is this really any different than many other communities around the country?
Well, I think it goes back to, again, you're seeing this revitalization or this push towards moving more towards brick and mortar places that where you can get the customer service, this movement back towards Main Street. You see places that are big names start to really struggle and go out of business. Macy's is really struggling. Kmart's really struggling. And you see the smaller places.
In fact, Macy's just announced it's closing even more stores right now. But I guess what surprises us about this is that it was just a couple of years ago we were talking about the death of the mom and pop shop, and then we were talking about the death of the big chains like Macy's and so forth. And even though those companies have struggled over the last couple of years, it seems some business is returning.
I think some of that is the rise of the millennials. I think that a lot of what that's reflecting is a difference in the type of customers who are actually now making their purchases. You're seeing people who are my age and younger now start to get their first jobs and get their income, and their spending is going to reflect their values, and that's going to reflect more towards local businesses over big boxes.
But I would imagine that there is a large segment of our community here, because we talk about how many snowbirds are on the Suncoast, that if they're shopping for their grandson Johnny or granddaughter Molly, there is still an attraction to do it online, so they could sell it, buy it, and ship it all with a click of a button.
When you take grandma and grandpa and they have their grandkids down here on the Suncoast, there's no experience that you can have except to go down to the toy lab and let those kids play with the toys, and grandma and grandpa get to see them do that. You cannot do that online.
Okay, so what is our takeaway here?
Well, but I think, and to jump on that, I mean, from an experience online, is I think over time the local Main Street retailers become a lot more savvy about online retailing. They're hiring social media people. They're actually getting in the game online, so they're not having to yield all the sales to people like Amazon or the large big box stuff that are able to do that. They're able to compete in the same game.
And we work together. For instance, you come into my store and get your eyes get your eyeglasses done, or your head examined. We might go ahead and give you a little appetizer over at Boca or maybe at Patrick's when you come in there, so then they get something out of it.
All right, so it's time for final thoughts. And Ron, if there's one thing that you can change about how we do business in downtown Sarasota here, what would that be?
Oh, geez.
Is that too much for
no snappy comebacks on that one?
Parking, meters?
Just keep the meters away for right now. But parking, parking always seems to be a problem. But if you have a problem with parking, that's a good problem.
Okay. Kevin, regionally, what is the one thing that we need to improve upon?
I think what we need to make sure we're doing is not saturating the market with retail square footage. I mean, we need to make sure, I think per capita spending here on the Suncoast is really where it needs to be from a comparative set across communities but we need to, across the United States, we need to make sure the mix of options that we have for people aren't oversaturated, because when that happens, the spending per square foot goes down and you really have a problem with the mix of stuff you have in the area. Of course, that'll never start competition in a free market, but it's really important for us to make sure we're having what we need when we need it, and focus on Main Street where the experiential shopping happens, but also in the malls where you can get a different set of options that aren't available anywhere else.
We need more restaurants. Michael, nationally, you said that we're moving back towards the smaller chains and the mom and pop shops, but are we seeing a good turn in terms of the way retailers in general are doing right now?
So far, so good. We do need to keep in mind that a lot of retail and a lot of spending is cyclical, and you always see increases in spending at the last quarter of the year. You're going to see drops in the first quarter, second quarter, but that's really just to be expected. That's just the cyclical nature of the economy.
Okay, well, I'll have to leave it there. FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And for the latest on local breaking news, don't forget to download the updated version of our app. If your current app doesn't work, it's expired, just go to the App Store and re-download it by searching for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Ron Sutto is the president of the Downtown Merchants Association. Kevin Cooper is president of the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, and Michael Snipes is an economics instructor at USF Sarasota Manatee.